Hey everybody, this is Marilyn Green. I'll be excited every week when I finally get to talk to you guys. But I am Marilyn Green, and I am the girl behind Girl Who Don't You Know. So I am always here trying to transform your mind one show at a time. So get ready. So please share the show, share the show, share the show. So hey, if you want to see me on YouTube, you can go to Marilyn underscore pink and green. Or, of course, you can go to my Facebook page, like and follow me on Girl Who Don't You Know. Post your comments because I definitely want to hear from you. And my guest I got tonight, you probably want to say some comments and say, hey, how you doing? I welcome all of that, because she is East St. Louis native. And she just knows some things I know. Which is good. Okay, so tonight we're going to be finding your voice to heal. And this, my guest, she has found her voice, and we know that healing is a process. So you're going to continually heal. So again, please share the show, and we will get started. And hey, it's about Girl Who Don't You Know tonight. And please go to Facebook or go to my YouTube page and subscribe at YouTube, like and follow me on Girl Who Don't You Know. So I am so honored. I mean, beyond compare to have this guest on tonight. John Williams, he said he loves this. That's my son, one of my number one sons, John Williams, is in the house. Thanks, son, for coming on. So I'm excited about this. So I'm without further ado, because everybody's time is valuable, I'm going to jump right into it. So tonight I have Goldie Taylor on. She's an author, motivational speaker, social justice activist. I am so excited to have her. And let me give you a little background of this. I saw that she was coming to St. Louis, and I saw that she went to a middle school, or junior high school, as we used to call it, called Rock. And so Rock Junior High School, we have this certain type of camaraderie. If you went to Rock, and I'll just say it, Rock was the baddest school in East St. Louis, meaning everybody was tough there. You can say you went to Rock and people back up like, what? So it's like an added Rock and East St. Louis together. So together, that means that you bad with East St. Louis, but Rock say you super bad, okay? And the funny thing about it, when I was at Rock, I didn't think they were bad. Maybe I didn't know. That was just part of the culture, But as I look back now, I guess they were kind of. I'm saying they like I wasn't part of it, but nevertheless, it's all good. It is all good. But I'm happy to have her on. Johanna Samuel, all the way from the island, saying good evening. Good evening. How are you? But I'm going to bring up Goldie Taylor. But before I do, I'm so excited because I actually got a guest on my show, Girl Who Don't You Know, who has recently been on The View. You all know about The View, okay? So she was recently on there. And so I'm just excited to bring her up and tell you a little bit more about her. So here she is. Hey there, Goldie.
Hey, Marilyn, it's good to see you.
Yes. So let me tell you how authentic she is as well. When I went to see her, I walked up to her and I said, can she come on my podcast? It's just a little show. She's like, I don't care. You know, she said, she said, here's my phone number. She actually gave me her phone number. And I start panicking. So, Goldie, like, wow, she ain't
You
gonna
didn't
say
show
it.
none of that.
I was being cool. I was being
You were cool. You were
I was
cool.
cool. I was cool, but for real, I'm like, eh. So anyway, so after I got her number, this is the funny part. I'm like, okay, I wrote her, I did this. She haven't said anything. So I'm sitting down, and all of a sudden I heard God say, call her right now. I called you, and she picked up the phone, everybody. She picked up the phone. I said, Goldie Taylor? And she said, basically like she knew me. And I'm like, wait. And you start talking, you and your mother were in Florida, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We were in
vacationing,
Sarasota.
Sarasota. So that's who she is. And I do appreciate her taking the time out of her busy schedule to come on the show. And I wanted to share her story just a little bit because I do want you guys to go and buy the book. The book is amazing. Okay. Tanya Garrett, good evening, Sorrel and Miss Goldie. She says, "Good evening."
Good evening, Tanya.
Yeah, so let me tell you a little bit about her. She was a political contributor on MSN, NBC, CNN, Lawrence O'Donnell's show. She was a special contributor on Opinion with Show Me Your Papers with Rachel Maddow. Sorry.
Mhm.
And then you had something called, I know I'm gonna pronounce it wrong, but help me out. It's called
Birtherism.
birtherism, and you were
Birtherism.
talking about your great great grandfather, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay, okay. So in 2009, she was on CNN. She was executive consultant for CNN's Black in America, which is the highest rating documentary in CNN's history. Okay. And now I believe that she's a CEO of Goldie Taylor Brand Communications. It's in Atlanta. It's a multicultural advertising and public relations agency. So you can see that she's pretty busy. So I'm happy to have her. Now, let's get to what we want to talk about. So she writes books. Okay. She has about four novels, really. 2005, she has In My Father's House. 2007 was January Girl. 2018, Paper Gods. Now, between 2007 and 2018, you took a break. What was
I
going
did.
on, Goldie? What happened?
I think, well, first of all, thank you for having me. There are a couple of things.
Sure.
Publishing was changing. The advent
Oh,
of self-publishing was coming. The way publishers were doing business with authors were changing. And, frankly, I needed to step back and take a look at how a novel is really constructed. I wrote
oh,
the first two, out of heart and hand, but I wanted to learn more about the craft itself. And so when I was sure I had a story and sure about what the publishing industry had become, I published a third novel. I
okay.
have to I have to give you two small corrections.
Thank you.
Number one, I am not an East St. Louis native.
Okay. All
I was
right.
deposited in East St. Louis when I was 8 months old.
Okay. That's right.
My first time my mother had to leave her children. She left them with my aunt in East St. Louis on 10th Street between Summit and Pennsylvania Avenue,
Okay.
and lived in and out of East St. Louis throughout my elementary school years, mostly summers, until I was brought back again at the end of seventh grade, the start of that summer, and lived there throughout those junior high school years through ninth grade,
Right.
until I headed to 10th grade. And so I am not a native. I was born in University City,
Okay.
but I have spent the bulk of my childhood in those streets. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is I now have left my agency and I
Oh,
am chief marketing officer at Dana-Farber Cancer Institute
okay.
here in Boston. And so it is a great opportunity, enough for me to sell my agency, certainly,
I see.
and am truly enjoying the work. And I say that we are reducing the burden of cancer for people here and around the world. And so I'm excited about the mission and excited about the work ahead, for sure.
Oh, wow. That's
No, for
great.
sure, for sure.
Thanks for
Um,
correcting me because I thought about it too. I'm like, I was born in Missouri as well, so I can't say
uh-huh,
I'm a native East St.
that's
Louis
right. Yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Okay, but I came over in 3 months, so thank you for that correction. But
Hmm.
whenever somebody is know about the East St. Louis streets, it's just exciting to me.
If you was born in
Okay,
St. Mary's,
St. Mary's.
if
I
you was
was
born in
born in
St. Mary's,
St.
then I'll say
Mary's.
that you're a native. I was born at St. Luke's Hospital on
Okay.
Delmar Avenue. Yeah,
Okay, all right. So, I mean, I was born in St. Mary's across the water,
across the water.
at the time, not the St. Mary's in East St.
Right,
Louis, but the one across the water,
that's
as
right.
they say in our neck of the
Across the
woods, cross
water.
the
Oh,
water,
across the
cross
river,
the
across the
water,
water.
cross the water. So, thank you for that correction and congratulations on your new position. So, let
Thank
me
you.
talk about this first and give me some background on this. You wanted to do or did a documentary on the other side of grace.
Hmm.
Tell me about that. What happened?
So we did. I wanted to talk about. I was in, high school when the East St. Louis Flyers were winning nonstop. There was at one point when the team was 36-0. They
Hmm.
had gone 5 years without losing a single game. And when I look back on those years, and my cousins played on those teams, I look back on those years and I said to myself, how did they win? This is post Terry Hill. Terry Hill, I think, graduated in 79,
Okay.
78 or 78 or
Okay.
79. So
Okay.
this is
Okay.
post Terry Hill.
Hmm.
And this team didn't even have the ability to wash their uniforms, commercially wash their uniforms. They take them home and wash them themselves. They did not have the kind of transportation that the other schools had. Those double-decker buses and other kids were on going across the
Right,
state. We were
right,
in yellow
right,
and
right.
rickety yellow school buses. But for all of the lack of resources we had, we were winning.
Yes,
And Coach Shannon had instilled in that team a sense of purpose. That when you got on that field, you were one thing. Whatever you did when you got home, you had to pay for it on that field, right? And so
yes.
you couldn't skip Sunday practice unless your mama said that you were at church. So
Wow.
there was a work ethic to that team that I know
Mm-hmm.
still exists today. And I wanted to explore that against the backdrop of what East St. Louis was becoming during that time. I had only heard of that story one time. It was featured on 60 Minutes. We all stood around my auntie's house back in the kitchen and watched it on a black and white little television. Watched, everybody in the city was tuned in to 60 Minutes that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And I remembered them telling the story. As I progressed through CNN and MSNBC, I realized the whole story hadn't been told in its fullness around what the team was today.
Right.
And so I started working on the other side of Grace. It became something known as 89 Blocks. And we did a treatment, shot a lot of footage and stuff. And then another production company came in and took up where we left off. And it aired on Fox, the network, not Fox News,
Okay.
but the channel Fox, in an afternoon documentary a few years ago. I think it was in 2018
Okay.
that it finally aired. It took us 3 years to
Okay.
get that project moved and off the ground, but I am excited that somebody finally told the story of that team in the context of the city that grew it.
Yes.
Because you can't grow that kind of greatness from dirt. You grow that kind of greatness because it is seeded, because it is nurtured and planted over time. That there were
Mm-hmm.
parents who were living, paycheck to paycheck, not able to make a light bill. They were making sure that their son could get to that football field every afternoon, right? And get
Right.
there in the summer for summer camp training. Now I can count 7 cousins who played as East St. Louis Flyers, East Side Flyers over time.
Wow.
Marshall Haywood, who is still active
I
in the
know the
city
Haywoods.
today,
Mm-hmm.
but Marcio is the youngest cousin I have who was a Flyer. And I remember
Mm.
calling his Coach Shannon, one afternoon to check in on him. This is some time back. He said, "I need to tell you something about your cousin. He is not only an athlete, but he is a scholar." Let
Wow.
me repeat that. He said, "He is not only an athlete, but he is a scholar.
Right.
I need you all to invest in both." And
Wow.
that's the kind of coaching that it took to do what was happening. So what I realized was kids were being recruited out of East St. Louis to go play for other teams.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yes.
once
And yes.
uh-huh,
And they're doing
and
it now.
and they're doing
It's
that,
being
and
they're
they're
doing it
doing
now.
that now. They're
Mm-hmm.
offering them some kind of better situation, whatever it is, to get them not to play for
Mm-hmm.
this powerhouse. And so they've begun to diffuse the power, and
Yes.
that's upsetting to me
It's
because that
upsetting to
team.
me as well.
I remember out of the corner of Collinsville Avenue at between 9th and 10th, the big
Uh-huh.
sign that stood out in the field,
Yes.
City of
City of Champ. It's
Champions.
still there.
That
It's
was
the last
all
time I
about
saw it.
that was all about football Flyers and the basketball the Lincoln Tigers were playing,
Mm-hmm.
in the track and field for both teams. I mean, we were vying for championships against each other, within the city every year. But
Right.
that's the spirit that the city has, and I wanted that to be showcased.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. And I look at it now, they have recruited a lot of us to these other teams. I'm not saying anything bad about the
Right,
Belleville East, the Belleville
right,
West, because as you
yeah.
recall, the Belleville West always had the rivalry against East Side, right? And it was
Those
about the
those are
Turkey
places we
Day.
couldn't even those are places we couldn't even go after sundown. When
Okay,
I was a
yeah,
kid, there was another 60-minute story that showed, the traffic tickets, the stops that we would
yes,
get if we
yes,
drove across that Belleville line after the sun went down.
yes, you're exactly right.
And those are the very schools, the very jurisdictions that are recruiting our kids today.
Right now, and we're believing the hype, and we're moving there, and they're playing against each other instead of playing within the
Instead of
East
playing
St.
together,
Louis
instead of playing
boundaries.
together, instead
And
of playing together.
so, and then Belleville West was just serious about getting that bail back, the big bail.
Serious, serious,
Serious. I mean, this
serious,
was a big thing,
serious.
because they couldn't beat us. They could
Couldn't beat
not,
us.
they
Couldn't
couldn't
beat
beat
us.
us. But
Couldn't
then
beat
they
us.
start to, but it's nothing new that what happens is the
Right. It's diluting. It is
it's
absolutely diluting.
diluting of the structure.
It
that
is.
makes us strong. The fabric, the very fabric that makes us strong. It comes in and sells us something, and I mean, I just say sell some trinkets, sell us some trinkets.
I tell you another story about how they have systemically attempted to strip the power out of the city.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not new. This is over the course of decades. But we know Sojay, Illinois. You
So
know,
mm-hmm.
we drive south, we cross into Sojay with all of the smokestacks and the enterprise.
Yes.
What some people don't know is that Sojay used to be a part of East St. Louis.
Yes.
They was a part of the city that they de-annexed.
Yes.
Sojay created the city. And the reason why, they didn't want their tax dollars paying for black children in East St. Louis to go to school.
Okay.
They didn't want, and so that great flight that I talk about in the book,
Mm-hmm.
white folks leaving East St. Louis in the late '60s, but they left in one pull after I call it the massacre. They call it the riot of 1917, massacre of
Mm-hmm.
1917, and they
Mm-hmm.
started leaving again when the civil rights movement came along. But they
They
left in a
did.
flood in the late '60s, '67 to '69,
Mm-hmm.
left all but a handful behind.
Yes.
They
Yes.
did that because they didn't want their kids going to school with us.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want their home taxes paying for us or paying for, the police department or all of the other infrastructure things. And so they systemically attempted to tear East St. Louis down from its roots. That
Yes.
was that's the point of me writing the story. What I saw happening there versus
Mm-hmm.
what I saw happening in St. Anne
Okay.
were,
Yes.
were
Yes.
diametrically opposed, and I needed to reconcile why.
Yeah. And another thing I want to add also, where I live, right outside of Laurel
Mm-hmm.
Village.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I live actually Belleville, Illinois, but
Yeah.
however, where it is up here in the hills where I am, it is still 189.
He's still 29.
And 189. So they were thinking that if you do decide to move just a little further, we still
Right.
gonna capture you and make
Oh,
you stay in 189.
absolutely.
So when I
Absolutely.
moved up here, I was like, okay, my kid's going to Catholic school anyway. I'm not concerned about that.
Right,
But
right, right.
nevertheless, but there still was a system to beat us to stay. No, you're going to stay where you're supposed to be planted.
That was the system. There is one more, there's two more things I'll tell you that I used to work for Home Depot years ago. I worked in their store support center in their headquarters. I reported into their CEO. I did his executive communications for community involvement. His wife's name was Sue. We go out to build playgrounds at Home Depot one weekend, and Sue says, "You're from East St. Louis? I'm from East St. Louis too," she says. I said, "Well, Miss Sue, you are.
Mm.
Miss Sue's white lady." I said, "Miss Sue, you are. Where'd y'all live?" Well, she told me where they lived. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, you couldn't live there when I was there. When did y'all move? She was 69.
Okay,
69.
there you go.
I looked up Sue. Her father was a professional baseball player with the St. Louis Browns.
Mm.
And just like Jimmy Connor and his family, they
Yes,
packed up and moved out when East St. Louis got too brown for them.
yes,
And so
this is
there was
true.
that piece of it. But the other piece, if you look at East St. Louis, the entire city is built on a floodplain.
Mm-hmm.
You're hearing about the wars now of trying to get the county to invest in making sure that the city does not flood. If
Right.
you read the history of flooding in East St. Louis, and there's a huge history in the archives around this, the entire city is built on a floodplain, and the floodplain is named the American Bottom.
Yes.
It's what East St. Louis sits on, right?
Mm-hmm.
When they got ready to build these suburbs in East Metro, they built a highway system that cut East St. Louis off from the rest of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So there are only a couple of exits where you can get off and get on. And
Right.
it goes around the city.
Yes.
They did that purposely to cut off the commerce and feed it into the rest of Metro East.
Exactly.
A
Exactly.
friend of mine wrote an entire book about the American highway system and how it impacted Black communities around the country and how they're
Yes.
using highways to literally cut through Black neighborhoods and strip apart the Black middle class.
Just
And
strip
so
it. Just strip it.
East St. Louis, for all of its revelry and its spirit, and courage that's had, it's faith-based driven. You don't find people in St.
Yes.
Louis that don't go to church because we just do, right?
Yeah.
There
This is the
was this,
question. Here's the question.
yeah,
What school did you go to? What church did you go to? Those are the
yeah,
two questions.
those two
Okay.
questions,
Those two questions. You got
those
to
two
answer
questions.
it. Even if you
Yeah.
don't go to church, you got to say, "Well, I used to go."
Y'all used to go. My mama go to.
That mama, that's my
My
mama.
mama go
That's
to.
my mama. Them church. Okay, that's what they say.
My church is no longer standing,
Okay.
but the church itself is still organized. It's Mount Perrin.
Okay.
And
Yes.
so it was Mount Perion when we were growing up
Hmm.
because they
Hmm.
misspelled the name of the church
I
all those
see.
years, all those years. And
I saw it in your book. I'm like,
looked in
where
the
is
Bible, we figured out
this?
the church was named Mount Perion.
Yeah, yeah,
But
I know where it is.
Zachary
Zachary Lee and
is
all those
pastor now.
steps. Is
But
that all the steps you
Jones
had to
Hubbard
work
was
up?
my pastor back then.
Yes,
His
yes,
brother Garfield was pastor out at Morningstar.
exactly. You do know East St. Louis,
That's my
Goldie. I'm
town.
happy for you. I love it.
That's
But
home.
let me change it just a little bit and talk about this book, okay?
Hmm.
Now, I did listen to a little clip and I started to laugh because when I saw The Love You Save,
Yeah.
okay, I thought about the Jacksons, and then you finally said that it was named after that song. Tell me about that.
It
Tell me about
was.
this book. Why did you pick this name?
Well, first of all, the Jackson Five were our Beatles when I was growing up.
It was.
We went to the first Jackson Five concert over Kiel Auditorium, and I
I
think
was
we all
there.
cried. We all cried listening to them boys dance and sing across the stage. But
Yes.
I remember there was one Saturday morning. I know how the programming went on Saturday. This part I don't remember all of. But my brother Don, who was 9 years older than me,
Mm-hmm.
told me that the Jackson Five cartoon had been canceled, and I couldn't watch it that Saturday morning
Mm-hmm.
because they were canceled. So he was going to watch. He waited and watched the Soul Train,
Mm-hmm.
dancers do their thing, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I found out the next week that the show was not indeed canceled, and I
Oh.
didn't speak to my brother. I was 4 or 5 years old. I didn't speak to my brother for weeks. My mother tells people that I've been pissed off since 1973 when my brother told me Jackson Five cartoon was canceled. So suffice to say, I was a Jackson 5 fan growing up, knew their songs and the moves and all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
when I began to talk about this book, my best girlfriend, Darlene in Atlanta, said to me, every day wasn't a bad day, Goldie. Write about the joy. And I
Mm.
said, Dar, it's about the love I saved and
Yes.
what we do with that. And
Yes.
that is what became, the name of the book was that there were people who populated my life who they didn't mean anybody any harm. Country folk doing things the way country folk did them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and I always say that there are hurt people. People can hurt you who love you. People who love you can hurt you.
Yes.
And the way that we came up, we didn't walk around saying, "I love you, baby." I need to give the little girl a hug, or maybe
Yeah.
my son needs a kiss on the forehead. Affection was a sign of weakness for us, and
Yes.
so it was. You paid your love in other ways. My
Mm-hmm.
uncle showed that he loved my auntie Gerald because that light bill was paid, because
Come
she didn't
on.
have to worry about gas in the car. There was
Mm-hmm.
a gently used car in the driveway every other year. There was a set of dishes or the encyclopedias that he bought from the man who went around the neighborhood
Yeah.
selling
I
encyclopedia
know
stories
them.
for. He showed his love and his obligation,
Right.
how he lived to that obligation for our family. And so it was that demonstration of love in that way that I really wanted to write about. Yes, children need affection. We've learned that, over time,
Mm-hmm.
in our family. But back then we showed it in other ways. And as a little girl, I didn't always process it that way.
Okay.
Why
Yeah.
don't they like me?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or I don't feel loved.
Right.
Even though I had, these basic things taken
You
care of,
did.
I felt like love was more than that. And I was
Yes.
angry about it
Yes.
for a really long time until I really sat down to write this book
Yeah. I
and
mean, but
realizing, yeah,
why
yeah,
now? My question is, why did you decide to do it now? I mean, I did see your part where you said you wanted a witness.
no
Okay.
witness.
So why did you decide to write your memoir now? I mean, it's powerful. I mean, anybody
Yeah,
that does not have this book where you're missing out, because I could not put it down. I mean, the way she weaves things in there and it's just a story and you can relate. If you're any type of African American black
right,
in America, you can relate to this
yeah.
book for sure, So why now? What happened? What said, "Hey, I'm ready now"?
But one of my feelings is that everybody has a story. Everybody
Mhm.
has that defining moment, that thing that made them what they are. And some folks are carrying around their stories and will carry them their lifelong. My grandma cat would say, "Let sleeping dogs lie."
Mm-hmm.
You know, you tell it once and let it go, right?
Right.
I wanted to lay it down. I
Mm-hmm.
got tired of carrying what I called other people's burdens with me.
Mm-hmm.
That I was carrying around the shame from the sexual violence, the shame
Yes.
from the casual cruelty, the shame from the demeaning behavior. You know, my she called me dum dum almost every day of my of my breathing life, uh,
Okay.
and so
Okay.
I was carrying around all of those shames. Even as I advanced and had these achievements coming, I still felt like dum dum. I still
Mm.
felt like what she called me when I was 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And so I needed to one put it all down and witness it for myself. That was two, number one. But the second thing is I have daughters. And
Okay.
now I've got grandchildren, granddaughters specifically. That if there was going to be a cycle broken, I would break it here.
Okay.
James Baldwin said, once you know, you must do.
That's it.
And that is where it was. I now know and now I must do. That
Yes.
my daughters are going to have daughters, hopefully. My son may very well decide to have children and
Mm-hmm.
may have daughters and sons.
That's
That
right.
this is the kind of story that I want to inform them as they raise their children.
Yes. Yes.
And so there
Yes.
wasn't a moment to spare when grandchildren started to come along the world. And you don't know how long you're gonna be here to tell them.
That's right. That's right. So, the book. Let's talk about the book a little bit here. So, you talk about the sexual violence, and I think that happened at the. Let me go back. At age 3, you were reading.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And so
Thanks to
you said
Sesame
something
Street.
about Sesame Street. You
Sesame
were
Street.
reading,
Yeah.
okay? And so between the ages 3 and I think 5 or something, I mean, you was, you know how the old people say, you was here, you've been here before, okay?
They told me I've been here before. I've been touched in the head, all kinds of things, all kind of euphemisms for, this kid's bright. That
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
she's come along with something. There's something special about her. My
yes.
grandmother would sit at the kitchen table with beans, and we'd add, subtract, multiply, divide them, and it was her way of seeing what I could do, and I was doing this in my head. She was
Mm,
watching the beans, and I was just listening, say, well, this is what it is, right? And then she would check it with the beans. And so there was a self learning that I was getting from being on my own in the house a lot, right?
yeah,
Just sat
yeah,
in front of the TV set, or left alone with some World Book encyclopedias that you certainly start reading.
yeah. You
And
didn't,
that was how I passed my time. I wasn't allowed outside with other kids because I
okay.
was too little to run with
Yeah,
my
you
big
was too
cousins.
little. You
I
was
was too
too
little to
little.
run with Barbara Brown and them. I was too little to run with Brenda and
Brenda,
Net and them.
know,
Net and
I
them.
know.
I was too little to run with Net and Janet Bug and Michael and them. And so I was the youngest of my generation. I was always in the
Wow.
house with my Uncle Ross. And in that house there were books. And I
Yes,
read every I had it.
I think he
Yeah,
had encyclopedia that you
he
used to read
did.
or something like that.
He had
So
child book.
child book. So we know about at age 11, I believe, was
Hmm.
the horrible thing that happened.
Yeah,
Okay. And I think what I read and what I got from that is that you talked about it a little bit before about how at that time how they express love,
right.
okay? And I think that, and I'm just help me out here, that once that happened, you needed some love the
Yeah,
way you wanted to be loved,
yeah,
right? But I'm thinking that you really couldn't articulate it to your mother that this is the kind of love that I needed,
right.
because in her mind I'm thinking that she don't know anything about that, because that part in the book had me almost in tears, and I was just I almost started dreaming about it. I started
Yeah,
having
yeah,
problems, but I'm
yeah,
just saying it
yeah.
was so graphic. And but all you basically got was, girl, just stop this now, okay? Just going on about your business. How did that
Yeah,
make you actually feel? I know it's in the book, but
right.
just right now, how did that make you just feel like, wow, this just happened? This just some. That's what it was.
Looking back now, my mother had been assaulted when she was 14. She remembers the
Oh,
baby blue pantsuit that she was wearing. My aunt Geraldine had been assaulted too in her teens, had a child out of that. And they were, they came of a time, my aunt was born in 32, my mother's born in 41. They came to growth in a time when you just need to roll your shoulders back and keep moving. You
mm,
didn't have time to despair. You didn't have time to lick a wound. Or you needed to get yourself together and get to work and earn a living and take care of your babies. And who were you going to run to? Who was going to be arrested and convicted in the rape of an 11-year-old black girl, by a 16, 17-year-old little white boy in St. Anne?
In St. Anne.
Who was going to do anything about that, really? And
Mm-hmm.
let's just say my mother did call the police, and that they did come.
They wouldn't
What
believe you.
they wouldn't have believed us, and then we as a family would have been targeted more than we already were. So that's grown up Goldie putting it in the context. But the 11-year-old Goldie felt alone and abandoned. And why won't somebody help me? Why won't somebody listen to me?
Mm-hmm.
And so there was a really dark time for me
Yes.
between 11 and 13 when I was just, my whatever sadness I said I had, it was my wagon to pull.
Okay.
And I can't, my grandbaby's 10 years old now.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot imagine her having to pull a wagon like that.
Wow. 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 And another thing that was happening back then is that you really didn't talk about it. Don't nobody, whatever has stays here, it happens here, stays here.
Dirty
Don't
laundry,
don't be
dirty
trying to
laundry.
air it. Don't talk about it. Don't do nothing. So you have to just basically, for quote unquote, suck it up
Suck it
and
up.
just get on about your business. Because I think about that, and I got a card here about parenting. Parenting in the 70s was totally different than it
Totally,
is now.
totally.
Kids now are talking about, I don't feel like doing that, or why are
Right,
you talking to me like this, and blah,
right,
blah, this and all that.
right,
Back then it wasn't like that. It's get
right,
over it. Children are better seen and not heard. You
right.
know the story.
I
So
do.
that was a lot of things. Okay. So I know that you were just totally upset. And then your mom said, okay, I'm going to take you over to, is it Aunt Geraldine's
Aunt
house?
Geraldine, Auntie
Aunt
Gerald's
Gerald,
house.
okay. And you got to go over there on the weekends,
Right.
okay? But eventually it came a time when the weekends got longer,
She didn't
okay?
come back.
And she did
She didn't
not
come.
come back. How did you handle that? I mean, I read it, but this is what's in the
Yeah.
book. I just want to hear now what's
I
going
thought it
on.
was just another weekend. And when
Oh,
it stretched a little longer, I thought it was just another summer
mm-hmm,
until it was almost a week later that my mother came back with my clothing in paper bags. And they were
mm-hmm,
those large grocery store national bags, that
mm-hmm,
Schnucks bag, whatever grocery store she got them from.
mm-hmm.
My little piece of clothing were in these bags. Whatever personal effects I had were in these bags. And I figured even then, okay, I'm just staying for the summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was accustomed to being in St. Louis for the summers. I was used to coming in and going to Jones Park and
Yeah,
hanging out with my cousins and walking up over to Parsons Field for whatever thing they were having over there, or going up on the hill for a party up at the hill at the rec center up there.
right.
I
Mm-hmm.
was used to that kind of thing and hanging out with my cousins in that way. But then the cousins started going home to their parents,
Mm-hmm.
and their mothers for the school year.
Mm-hmm.
Came time for me to go home. My aunt said, "Well, I'm gonna carry you up here to Rock and get you signed up for school." And that was the first time I knew that it was permanent. That she
Right.
was enrolling me in school. That I wasn't going back to Hake Junior High School in St. Anne. That Rittner Senior High School was not supposed to be where I was going. That I was going to go to school at Rock, and likely was supposed to go on the East Side after that.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
your life was really, really super dark. I mean, you've had problems with yanking hair out and
yeah,
all type of things. I mean, I
mhm,
think the biggest thing when I read this book was the part of the attempted suicide. And
yeah,
I don't even know how you got the courage to find your mama's gun and do what you thought you was gonna do, but
yeah.
somebody, no, God stopped it. It stopped because you had so much else to do, so much purpose ahead of you. I mean, how did you get? I mean, you did the gun thing, you swallowed pills, you done everything
I was
trying to
determined. I
raise.
was determined to get out of here.
You was determined to
Yeah, I
leave.
was determined to get out of here. I was 11 years old. I was determined to get out of here. And I didn't,
Wow.
all I knew was that my father was dead. He'd been murdered when I was 5.
Mm-hmm.
And that wherever he was is where I wanted to go. Because these people, obviously in my head, didn't care enough for me. And, I was seconds away from shooting myself. Seconds when my brother
Seconds.
when
When he bust in and
my brother
said,
came busting in the bathroom. Girl, get out of here! I gotta go pee.
"Girl, I gotta use the bathroom. Get out of here."
Seconds away from that.
Seconds.
He didn't even recognize that I had a face flushed with tears and I couldn't breathe and I had been in there, sobbing. He had no idea. My brother's gone today. And if there's anybody who loved me thoroughly, it was Donnie Mack, my brother.
Okay.
And so there was that piece of it. But before that, I had gone. It was a holiday weekend. We'd gone down to my Auntie Killer's house. Down
I love that. I love that.
Auntie Killer.
Auntie Killer.
Auntie Killer was something else.
How did she get that name? Where did that come from?
Doris Jean Ridley had some unwritten rules. You didn't mess with her dogs. You didn't mess with her man. If you messed with one of those, she carried this. Well, one, she carried a pistol in her purse. But you were slow to see that. You were quick to see this switchblade that she had, pearl handle with a flip on it. You punched the button on the side and the blade flipped up.
Yes, yeah.
And she would pull that blade out, and she meant that I will cut your throat. And she threatened more than a couple people with that blade, so much so that the neighborhood started calling her Killer.
Yeah.
And so that's all the kids ever called was Auntie Killer. I knew her name was Doris Jean Ridley, and I knew why they called her Killer as a little girl, right? But you just didn't go mess around with Auntie Killer. But Auntie Killer was another one who loved me deep. If there was some place to go and talk about something, she was kind of my mother's interpreter.
Okay.
I could say it to her, and she carried the word back to my mother in a way that my mother could receive it. Right.
Right.
I got to go to her house for a holiday weekend. All of us for the barbecue. My Auntie Gerald wouldn't eat her potato salad because
I know. I go for the story with that one. Tell them about that. It's in the book. Get the book. Get the book.
So Doris Jean Killer practiced something called hoodoo.
Yes.
It's not voodoo. It's hoodoo. And it is the superstition of how you deal with world's things. So burning of the candles, right? The love candle, the money candle, you see those burning on them. But she also did things like if you didn't want somebody to bother you, or like you could put their name in tuck it in your shoe and walk on their name, right? But there was this other thing that she held for people she especially loathed.
Oh yeah.
There was this woman who had flirted with my Uncle Willie down at the bar corner, down at Taylor and Aldine. She came home, and my uncle wouldn't let her kill her. So she came home and wrote her name on a piece of paper, pissed in a Ziploc bag, stuck the name in the bag, zipped it closed, and put it in the freezer. My Auntie Geraldine said, I ain't never eaten another scrap of your food in your house as long as I'm breathing on this side of the grave. So Auntie Killer did things just like this. She believed in the home remedy. She taught me how to make a hot toddy, right? To get yourself well. It was her that taught us these home remedies. But we went to her house one weekend for holiday weekend to eat ribs and the old cutout oil drum grill and such.
Yeah. The real one.
I was the real grill.
The real grill.
I never remembered feeling quite so alone as I did at that weekend. As everybody was having fun and kids outside with sparklers and going on, and I was just in the house, just sitting at the table. And by the time I got home that night, my mother had those Tylenol that were these red and white capsules.
The red and white.
And I had decided, I didn't know which medicine I was supposed to take. She had a whole row of things. I pulled out the Tylenol and started gulping them down until I choked. And I was in the bathroom still, tossing back and getting under the sink and tossing water into my mouth because when she came in and I had begun to throw up because I was gobbling them so quickly. Right. I threw up until nothing but bile came out. Wow. And all my mother could think was, there you go getting sick on me again.
Yep. That's what you said.
There you go getting sick on me again. And that, I think what saved me was throwing them up. Is that my body wouldn't keep them, wouldn't digest them, wouldn't dissolve them. I threw them up, threw up the cabinets.
It wasn't time for you to leave. Let's go there. So eventually, you got to go to a really super great school called Rock Junior High.
I did. And I had the most phenomenal teacher that God has ever made.
Yes, the most phenomenal teacher. And let
And
me tell you
the Peggy
something.
Lewis LeCompte, Peggy L. Lewis LeCompte.
Peggy Lewis LeCompte.
Yes,
And of course, she's a powerhouse.
yes,
She's smart, she's pretty, she's just all that, and several bags of chips, a hat,
yes,
sun visor, you
yes,
name it. I
yes.
mean, this is a lady who has you can't take nothing from her.
Not a thing.
It's
Not a
not
thing.
nothing you can take away from her.
Nothing you need to add to her. She is
No, no
perfection.
add, no
She's
take away,
perfection.
no whatever. She's
Yeah,
done it. You know,
yeah.
she gave you this poem called Invictus by William Ernest Henley.
Yep.
And she said, I believe, get this, you're going to recite this, right? And
Yeah.
when I read it, it says at the end, I am the master of my fate and I am the captain of my soul. Now, did you think that Miss LeCompte was seeing some things that you also said you was a walking wreck?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not at the
Did you
time. I didn't think. I thought she was just giving me some more work because she was always handing out work to folk. It wasn't
okay.
until I started reciting it and
Hmm.
learning it
Hmm.
that I start to understand why we were, because we all got it at some point, but why we
Right.
all had this poem. I actually had a chance to ask her about that in St. Louis. We were on stage at the Ethical Center. Why did you hand out this poem, this British poet, to these black children in East St. Louis?
Well, let me just stop you right now. I
Mm-hmm.
have her here today. There she is.
That's what's wrong with you, Marilyn.
What you say? What did you say?
That's what's wrong with you, Marilyn.
This,
You
this
played too
one.
much. Talking too
I
fast.
said, now, let me just put her up. You said I had a chance to ask. I said, well, you can ask her now. You know, thank you, Mrs.
Oh my
Peggy
goodness.
Lewis
Oh my
LeCompte.
goodness.
You are welcome. I'm listening and listening.
She's making my life. Making my life.
I had to because once people read the book, they really need to see the faces. Okay.
Mm.
This is the lady that I know turned you around. I know she turned you around. Okay.
Yeah.
She turned
Yeah.
you
I think I
around, and
think I
because
think I think more than she would ever know.
but she
I hope
saw.
she's getting her flowers now because I mean to tell everybody who'll hear it.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
That
hope you
was
heard your name on the view because I
yes.
I
was
did.
I was shouting it
I
out to
was
3 million people.
I was actually in my bedroom and I heard my name and I ran back to the television. And of course, my phone started ringing. At first, I didn't know why the phone was ringing because you get so many scam calls.
Yeah.
And
Right.
eventually, somebody was on there that I knew was a real person. And when I picked the phone, they were screaming, and I think I may have been screaming. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But I have received letters and notifications from people all over the United States
Wow.
who heard that. One lady said she thought I was a fictional character until you said that about the AKA and the license plate. Then
Yes.
Yes,
you
she
said that.
did. In the
So,
book. In the book.
and I had
Mhm.
forgotten that myself.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah.
She said nothing but good things about you. I mean, and it was so perfect right now when you came up. She was messed up. She did not know it, Miss LeCompte. Miss LeCompte, she did not know that you
No
were
idea.
coming on. I kept that one.
But
Okay.
No idea.
if God does not give you anything to work with, you can't make anything out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Now you
Yeah.
can work and you can knead the bread if you don't put some rising in it or some, if you see I'm not a cook, baking soda, whatever it is you're supposed to put in
It's
there,
okay.
you will never get a roll out of that. You'll just have this piece of dough that you're just
Mhm.
rolling over and over and over again and wondering what's wrong with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm
But
just
she,
grateful for gold.
me
It
too.
reaffirms your belief. And sometimes you wonder, did I make a difference?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Were people listening? And you ask about Invictus.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
the part about Invictus that I like is I am the master of my fate. I
Yes.
am the
I.
captain of my soul. Now,
Yeah.
granted, God is in charge,
Right.
but if he gave you a brain. He wants you to use it. I tell people all the time, I don't worry God needlessly because
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
give me a brain. First, think about it yourself. When I go, I don't want him hanging up the phone or cutting off the iPod or cutting off the computer because he knows that when Peggy Jean Lewis LeCompte goes there to ask him something, I have tried to use everything he gave me before I come to him. I thank him every day for all he's given me. But
Yeah.
when there's a problem, he knows. I want him to answer the phone when I call.
Okay, yeah, he will. He will answer.
Or dismiss me or not pay my bill or whatever it is God does to make sure he hears you. But I
Yeah.
also I could have done a lot of things in my life. There are a lot more things. Almost everywhere I went, I was offered a job because I had the television
Yes.
show. I
Mm-hmm.
wrote for the newspaper. But there's
Mm-hmm.
just something about touching lives
Yes.
and seeing children walk away. And then
Mm-hmm.
now seeing them as adults. I was at a funeral
Yeah.
yesterday and every other person was running up. I was in your room. I was in
I
your
was in your
how
room. I was in your room.
of course you all get big and get grown and get gray hair and whiskers and all other kinds of things and get cute and everything. And you're saying, and they say the name. I somehow indelibly impressed in my mind happens to be people's names. I always remember the names. I can just see the roll
Yeah.
jump in front of me. And
Yeah.
but
Oh yes.
Goldie, I tell
That
you.
Goldie, that Goldie. I mean, Goldie, we had planned this, okay? So I talked to her at a sorority meeting. I said, Goldie's coming on. She said, "What?" I said, "You know what? How about if you come on too?" I'm
Oh
not
my
gonna tell
goodness.
her. She said, "Oh, she like that." That's what she said, okay?
She
And
was.
so, so it was so funny. It's just
Yeah.
perfect timing, because you don't know, Goldie, your face is beamed up, and what the lighting changed in your face, your whole
I bet it did.
countenance. It
I
did.
bet
Your
it
whole
did. I bet
countenance
it did.
changed. Like, wow. Because I believe that educators do not see the fruit of their labor.
Right.
Okay. They
Not often
pour
enough.
in and pour in and pour in. But when they see somebody that is doing something, they know they had a little bit to do with it. But with this
Right.
one, it's a bit to do with it.
Big to
Okay.
do.
A
Big. A
bit
big to
to
do.
do.
A
I
big to
mean,
do.
I'm telling you, Goldie, you look lighter already. I don't know. You just start looking
I think
lighter.
I
I
think
don't know.
I am. I think I
I
am.
don't know, but
I was in Los Angeles last weekend for
mhm.
the LA Times Festival of Books. And every time I get off a plane to go to something like that, I think about what somebody instilled in me to want me to make me want to go and dream bigger and do more. And
Mhm.
when I get onto a stage like that, I think about sitting in the front quarter chair in
Mhm.
90117 and how much that meant in terms of paving the road. But while I was there in Los Angeles at dinner with Tavis Smiley,
Mhm.
and Tavis has authored 24 books now on television stage. He's done star, stage, and screen. And my grandbaby was with me. And we sat with the man who runs all of C-SPAN's books.
Okay.
And we were having dinner. And Tavis said, I really loved your book. And I love what you said about Mrs. LeCompte. Let me tell you about my
Mm.
second grade teacher.
Okay.
I believe that everybody who's made something has that one teacher that they can point back to. Tabby says every time he goes to Indiana, he used to go to her old folk home where she was at, and they would have a Tabby Smiley Day. Every time he comes back. But every one of us has, and there were a lot of teachers, make no mistake.
Mm-hmm.
I had a number of instructors over the years from kindergarten right on up who had something to do with
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is that I did.
Right.
But when the rubber met the road, when things became necessary, when there was a road that I could have taken left, right, or otherwise,
Wow.
that there was one teacher who made every bit of difference about what choice I would be able to make for myself, that I would go out and create these options for myself because she said I could.
Yes.
And there was never a I can't do or I'm unable. She was excellence without excuses
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
every single time. I think
Every
that
time.
is why my life, you look across my living and things are right in their appropriate places in my house and in my life. That's because Peggy LeCompte's room was in its place. That when I walk
Okay.
outside,
Okay.
your hair is done and you're
Oh
ready
yeah.
for the world, whatever that is. That there was a way that you carried yourself.
Mm-hmm.
That the young girls in your class, we wanted to emulate you in our walk and our talk and our being. And I think that
Wow.
that has lived through all of us in our lives.
That is so nice. So perfectly. I mean, you said it. you know,
I'll be there.
because
But you know,
those,
Marilyn,
huh?
you just, I, I guess it sounds extraordinary, but my mother always taught me that you give the world the best you have every day.
Every day.
There's enough going on without you adding anything else into the pot.
Mm-hmm.
And just from a personal point of view, I just never wanted my students to, I didn't want to be a teacher where they looked and say, oh, I didn't learn anything in there, or she
Right.
didn't ever listen to what I had to say, or she didn't challenge me to do anything.
Mm-hmm.
Every day was a challenge for me. I wanted every day to be a challenge for them.
She
And
did.
you did, and you
They didn't
She
did.
let me
did.
down.
She did.
No, it
No,
She
didn't
no.
let
did.
me down. Here
There
she is,
was, we had,
little
I
nigga
remember
with
I
it.
said on the stage, Tamiko Youngblood,
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. Oh,
first Black PhD in mining sciences. You
yeah.
know, there was, we didn't have Pamela in our classroom. Pamela Means was
Yes.
impacted by youth and speech competitions. She goes on to become president of the National Bar Association.
You know, I
You
was
know,
on her campaign committee. She came and
yeah,
found me.
yeah,
I had to
absolutely,
work
Yeah.
with her.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Had to work with her. So there were just so many of us that I can point out to, those of us who became educators. You know, who Claire carried on. You know, that became educators. My older sister had Miss LeCompte 6 years, 7 years before I did.
Mhm.
Was it Lori?
And
What's her
it was
name? Lori.
Lori,
Lori.
Lori
That's
Ann.
right. It's in the
Lori
book.
Ann,
I want you
Lori
guys to
Ann
get the
is
book. It's in the book.
Lori Ann is head of nursing for University of South Florida today. You know,
Wow.
these are things that I know that we wouldn't have if they hadn't been reflected to us, that kind of excellence shown to us what we could be.
Right.
I knew
And
that
you
I knew that
know,
we would.
I think that is really important because, like I said, define your voice. Define the when I say voice, it's not always audible. Just
Yeah,
define who you are,
right.
you know, and like you said, it's one teacher or one thing that will trigger it or change. You know, you're standing at the crossroads,
Yeah.
okay? And
Mm-hmm.
that one teacher was said, and I think she really brought to you the love, the attention, the I am smart, you know, before you got on, Ms. LeCompte, you were saying about, I think it was her auntie used to call her dum dum every day. And
Every day.
so you
Yeah.
brought to her the fact that, hey, you're not dumb, you know. And I think
Right.
when she was over in the school in St. Anne, I think she was in a class or something. And the one teacher said, you don't have to be in this class in order to be special, you know.
Right.
So other teachers have poured into her, but that
Mm-hmm.
one teacher that really poured into her was you. And I love the fact, Goldie, that you don't let nobody think otherwise.
Mm-mm.
Okay, that it's not. You know, Annabelle says, "Yes, finding your voice has changed my life forever." You know, so everybody got their favorite teacher. My favorite teacher is third grade, Miss Shirley Garrett. That Miss
Mm-hmm.
LeCompte knows. You know,
Yeah.
she changed my life, and so everybody, but I think we talked about the City of Champions, Miss LeCompte,
Mm-hmm.
before you got on. East
Okay.
St. Louis is such a manufacturer
Mm-hmm.
of great people that are known and unknown, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and we are very proud to be from East St. Louis,
Yes.
originally
Yeah.
or not originally, or just getting some of the nutrients, as my son would say, that's in East St. Louis. You can't, you know, everybody knows East St. Louis for the good or the bad. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
everybody knows.
Everybody.
Everybody knows. And
Everybody.
Miss LeCompte, when you weren't on, but I told them, I said, when you were from East St. Louis, they thought you were bad, but when you went to Rock, you were super bad then. Okay, so it's like
Kentucky
nobody
Exchange.
bothered you. Nobody
Yeah.
bothered you. You
Yeah.
just said that. You know, I have somebody told me that they lived right down the street from
Mm-hmm.
Rock, but they begged to stay with their grandmother to go to Hughes Quinn
Huge
Right.
because
Queen.
they just didn't want to go to Rock. And I
Right.
told Goldie, I said, Goldie, I didn't think it was that bad until I
I heard a
left.
lot. I heard a lot of that, but my auntie wouldn't let us go anywhere else. I mean, we lived a block away, and
And I'm
so
like, I didn't
we
get
could
it.
have asked to go somewhere, but we were going where she said go.
Right. But Rock
You
was a
know,
good
Yeah.
school.
I think
Mhm.
that was a part of their motivation and my motivation because I was transferred after the teacher strike
Mm-hmm.
to Rock
Mm.
as a
Oh,
punishment.
oh,
Supposed to be a punishment. And we went out and just beat everybody up in scholar quiz and
We sure did.
everything
hmm,
else we could do.
What was
As
Sidney's
I
last
told the
name?
superintendent, I said, I can teach on a roof.
Yeah.
And I
that's
believe
right.
that.
Yeah. We did.
Give me
Right,
a roof
right.
and don't let it rain on me every day.
Pam, me, Cedric Johnson, we were all on scholar quiz together.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
But I
yeah,
tell you,
yeah,
ladies, Goldie, Miss LeCompte, it has been such a pleasure to have you guys, and I love the look on your face. Go back, Goldie, and look at this later on so you can
I'll
see
have to
your
look at
face.
it.
Because you
I'll
was
have to look
talking
at it.
about Miss LeCompte. I said, there she is. I'm
I
going to pull it up
was.
right now. Boom, here you go.
Nothing,
right there.
Perfection doesn't need anything added to it.
And Goldie, Larry is on here looking from Accokeek, Maryland.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Yes,
Oh my goodness. Larry Comp and
and
father
my
of
grandson.
Max. Yes.
Wow,
Thank you.
wow. That's
What a
great.
beautiful boy.
I am so happy. I'm so happy. And I'm looking at all these quotes. She knows she loves James Baldwin, but I think this one right here is the one I want you to elaborate on me really quick. If you had to put some stuff down, you have to put some stuff down. I'm sorry, if you want to fly. So,
Yeah.
Goldie, tell us about that, and then we'll be ready to almost close out. But tell us.
You asked me why I wanted to write this story. And
Mhm.
I said I needed A, to tell myself what happened. And two, I needed to put down the burdens, my own and those that were caring for other folk. You know, birds are able to fly
Mhm.
because their wingspan and the flutter of their wings carries the appropriate level of weight. But a bird could not fly if it picked up a barbell. You
Mhm.
know, that the God has created them in flight for the perfect weight that they have. Human
Right.
beings were created in that too. And when we are in balance, when
Mhm.
we're carrying the appropriate weight, we can fly. Hearing all that extra stuff,
That's
all
right.
those
That's
extra
right.
things,
That's
then
exactly
it's a
right.
little hard to get your feet off the ground.
That's right. Miss LeCompte, do you have any final words you would like to say? I'm happy you came on. Thank you so much. Okay, I'm happy.
With
Go
all
ahead.
the jazzy young members of my sorority, there is a sweatshirt that says, I understood the
That's fine.
assignment.
You
Understood the
did.
assignment.
I am grateful eternally. First of all, to young people who knew what excellence meant and embraced it, but for understanding the assignment. It's okay to write the lesson, but if nobody does their assignment, you will not have a product. Thank
That's
you.
right. Thank you.
Goldie, God bless
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you for letting me. I thank God for my being alive to hear this.
I
Um,
thank God for
I'm gonna make my
us
head
being
any bigger,
alive
but it
to
just
tell it
confirmed and
to each other.
affirms. Yes,
Yes, that's right. So, ladies, don't go anywhere. Let me give my final words. Don't be afraid to share your story. It could be the key that unlocks someone else's prison. And so please go and get this book and read about it. I mean, she had the courage. I'm going to say the courage to write this. Please read about it, because it was, I couldn't put it down. I think Miss LeCompte told me she'd have read it twice.
I
Okay.
have.
But, it's a really good book. And The Love You Say by Goldie Taylor. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I mean, so much. So please go and do that. And ladies, don't go anywhere. And I'm trying to get my next guest in 2 weeks. My next show would be about imposter syndrome and perfectionism. And I'm going to have 2 PhDs on. We're going to talk about that and unpack it. So if you guys are not doing anything, or if you're doing something, just stop and come back on my show and listen to this, because imposter syndrome is real and it's there. Annabelle said, Marilyn, thank you for such pleasant ride home this evening. So she's listening. 100 for your awesome guest as well. Annabelle, thank you so much. And thanks to everybody that came on. And like I said, please tune in, like, and follow me. Our next show is going to be the bomb as well. Thanks, Goldie. Thanks, Mrs. LeCompte. I appreciate you so much. So take care until next time. Bye-bye.
God bless both of you.
Thank you.
Mr.